Hi everyone, I'm Angela Fair. Today I want to show you an alternative method to traditional watercolor framing. Traditionally, watercolor paintings are matted and framed under glass. But over the last little while, I've been using an alternative technique which I really like, and that is mounting my watercolor on a wooden panel and then waxing it for a preservative finish. I really like this technique because while it is a beautiful contemporary look, it doesn't add a coat of shiny varnish, which would just kind of spoil the integrity and the beauty of fluid watercolor painting. I really love the look of watercolor on paper, and I don't want to lose that in my framing treatment. So when I found this waxing a painting on a wood panel technique, I've really liked it. I've been using it for quite a few of my paintings, and it does give a beautiful preserved finish. So I'm going to demonstrate how to do that today if you want to try it. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, there are links to supplies in the description down below. So let's take a look at the steps involved. You're going to want to give yourself a little bit of time to do this, several days, because each step needs some time to dry and cure. So let's just get to work. Okay, so first of all, you want to gather your supplies. I've got my wooden panel, I've got my painting, but I also need to have a nice lint-free soft cloth, a flat paintbrush. I've brought a brayer. I have this camera varnish. It's made by Krylon, and really any kind of spray varnish, spray acrylic varnish should work. I like this one because it's not super glossy. I also have this golden heavy gel, and I also have this one's almost empty, and then I'm going to be using the extra heavy gel, although I found the heavy gel works quite well. And then I have Dorland's wax medium. One thing I like about this stuff is it has beeswax in it. It smells really pleasant. So let's just get started. There are a few steps to this process, so you want to give yourself several days in order to get it completely mounted. And the first thing I've done with this is I've already sealed my painting with 2 thin coats of the camera varnish. So, and I've just lightly sprayed it over the front. I went outdoors and did it outside, and gave it 1 coat, let it dry for about an hour, and gave it another light coat. And that will seal the painting so that when I go to put the wax medium on to put the finish, the paint isn't gonna move. So that's important. It also seals it because when we mount this on the panel with the gel medium actually soaks into the paper from the back side. So we're going to do that next, is just prep our panel. One thing you might want to do is just check your panel, make sure it's dust free and clean, and even sand it lightly if you feel like it needs to be smoothed out a bit. And I'm just going to start with my nice big flat brush. I'm almost out in there, and just put a fairly thick coat on. I don't want to have any missing spots because you can really only do this once, and this is the part that's that I don't want to make a mistake on and have, you know, a dry patch where the painting's not going to stick to my panel. And so I make sure as well that I go right up to the edges and have all the edges covered. It does dry clear, so if I go over the edge, that's not a big deal either. And just going to scrape off the excess. Usually I do a batch of these at once, not just one, to save me some time and help me be more efficient. And then I like using the brayer to smooth it out. One thing I like that the brayer does is it also kind of gives me those little raised grooves that you can see there. And the nice thing about that is when I just feel like it gives kind of a tackier surface than if it was completely smooth. And I don't know, maybe that's just my illusion. I always make sure my paper is a little bit larger than my panel, and then I want to just center it on there as best as I can. And my main priority here is getting it straight and making sure my signature is not cut off when I lay it down. And here, if you had another brayer, you could flatten it down with that. I like to bend the paper slightly, and remember, because I've sealed it with some varnish, I don't have to worry about my hands, which are clean, smudging the paint. because it has been sealed. Okay, so there we go. It's stuck down. I folded it around the edges just to help make sure that it's going to stay. And then I want to just put something on it. Usually what I'll do is put it on a nice clean sheet of paper and put a book down on it so that I have nice even pressure over the whole panel as it dries, and I allow it to dry overnight. So a clean sheet of paper just to have a nice, not get it stuck onto my table or and then a nice heavy book over it to flatten it out. And I'm just going to leave that overnight. A bigger panel, I have to be a lot more careful about how evenly it's weighted down. And that way it will just help it to stick evenly to the panel. So my little 6-inch panel has had a chance to dry after that coat of the extra heavy gel. I let my panel dry overnight, so now my watercolor paper should be firmly adhered to this surface. And so now you see I have this excess paper that needs to be trimmed off. And so I'm just going to do that with a sharp knife on a self-healing mat. And again, I'm keeping the white paper down as a barrier to just any dirt or anything that might stain my painting, because I still haven't put that wax finish on. I've got my little X-Acto knife, and the general rule for X-Acto, or for any blade, it's going to cut better if it's sharp, and you'll be less likely to cut yourself as well. And just run it along the edge for a nice smooth cut. And now you may think it's ready to go. It looks ready, but it's not yet. I want to put that preservative finish on, but I also want to make sure my edges are nice and smooth. So before I put my wax finish on, I'm just going to take a little sandpaper, or actually a nail file will even do if you don't have sandpaper, and just carefully buff my edges here. That will take away, I'll sand away any excess glue along the edge and any paper that I didn't trim quite neatly enough. And this will give your edges a really nice professional look. No matter how smoothly you cut, just going along with the sandpaper just evens out that edge, gives a slight rounded edge as well. And then just make sure you wipe away the dust, clean cloth. You might also want to decide at this point, or even before you mount your paper, if you want to treat your edges of your panel in some way. I really like this unfinished look. I think it looks so natural that I like leaving it unfinished, but you might prefer to paint it white or black, just so it's a little, maybe that's a look you prefer. But I like it unfinished, so I can go right into waxing my painting. And I have another clean lint-free cloth here, my Dorland's wax medium, and I'm just going to go right in and pick up a little bit of wax and just start rubbing it on in a circular motion. And I want to just make sure I get a nice even coat of wax and not overdoing it, and just spreading it out. And right now it looks a little cloudy because I think I put on a little more than I needed. We're just going to massage it in. And I do wax the edges as well. And I'm going to just turn my rag and start to just buff that in a little bit. And it's going to feel a little sticky and very creamy. I love the feel of it. And I don't want to rub too much at this stage. I kind of just like getting a nice even coat, making sure there's no thick layered lumps here. And that's really all there is to it. If I look at it from an angle, it might look a little bit velvety. It's not going to be shiny. Not very shiny anyhow. And then I want to let it dry for a while. And I like to leave it overnight. I believe somewhere I read 2 hours, but I think overnight is better. Give it a nice amount of time to kind of cure. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to put another thin coat on just to make sure I've got that wax completely covered, and then I can buff it to a beautiful finish. I've put on my 2 thin coats of wax. I've allowed drying time in between each coat, and now I can come back with a clean lint-free cloth and just buff my painting just a little bit. And this just, the friction of the rag will just soften the wax a little bit and create a little bit of a shine. You can buff a lot if you want a glossy finish. I don't like a glossy finish, I just want a little bit of a sheen, and to use that wax or that friction to just smooth everything out. So I just take a few minutes and buff it. And buff the edges as well if you've applied wax to the edges, and then you're done. And that's all there is to it. You've got a finish that is both contemporary and still a lovely preservation, and it really keeps the beauty of watercolor. What I have here looks really very true to the original finish of the paper, and that's the thing I really like about this this treatment of my watercolor paintings. Do take a look at the supply list in the description. I've got links there where you can order your own materials to do your own wood panel mount, and let me know how it goes for you. I'd love to hear if you try this method, or if you have some variations on the method that you'd like to tell me about. Please feel free to let me know. Thank you for watching, and as always, enjoy your watercolor journey. It just keeps getting better as you put that time in and continue to explore new ideas and sharpen your skills. I'm Angela Fair. Have a great day.